Are you tired of watching shows that only give you general social media theory and expect you to figure out how to apply it to your own industry? Join us for this week's episode of Social Chatter, the industry's longest-running social media marketing news talk show. Not only will you learn the latest breaking news, but you'll also gain practical advice on how to apply it. Now here's your host, Christian Karasiewicz.
Welcome everyone to Social Chatter, your weekly social media marketing news talk show. My name is Christian Karasiewicz, and you are watching the 255th episode of Social Chatter, where we bring you the latest breaking social media news each and every week. This week, Jim and I are excited to be joined by our guest, Ross Brand, who is the host of StreamYard Connect. And this is going to be a great episode, but I want to go and just touch on what some of those topics are that we're going to be discussing today. For starters, we're going to be talking about Facebook paid online events. So this is a feature that Facebook's rolling out for Facebook pages. You're going to have a new way to generate some revenue for your business. We're also going to be touching on a change to Facebook pages. People used to like pages, and you've slowly started to see the follow button. So there are some additional changes to that we're going to discuss. In addition, we're going to talk about some Facebook group updates, specifically to ads within Facebook groups. I'm not sure how you feel about them, but I'm not necessarily a fan of seeing ads in Facebook groups, but we'll talk more about that. In addition to that, we're going to be talking with Ross about live video, about ways to monetize in live video and whether you should use it as a primary means for your business. And in addition to that, we'll also have a couple of tools that we're going to be discussing this week as well. But I'm going to go and bring on Jem. Sorry, by the way, for the delay in starting. As you know, there are technical glitches that do happen, and we're running into an audio one right now. So, Jem, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Christian. Great to be here. Good morning or good afternoon to people wherever they may be watching, or in your case, I even know it's like good evening. Can't say where you are though. But there's some great things we're going to be talking about today. Excited to have Ross Brand on with us. Ross is the host of StreamYard Connect on over on StreamYard on multiple channels. I was gonna say on Facebook. He's everywhere. He's everywhere. Also Livestream Universe. Ross is a great guy. Really keeping up with things. He actually introduced me to the process to get on Amazon Live, and it worked for me. I know other people have. If you want to know more, just Ross has got a great YouTube video out there about that, and he just was a big part of PodFest Global Summit and I was a part of that as too. We set a world record for the most attendees at a 1-week virtual podcasting event. So that was pretty cool.
Fantastic. So let's go and bring on Ross, kick things off. I know we value everyone's time, so we want to make sure, we keep it to about 45 minutes or so. So Ross, it's great having you back on Social Chatter. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. A lot of exciting stuff going on right now in the social media world, and particularly with Facebook.
Definitely. So did Jim did he hit all the highlights for you? Is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, it works for me. That was quite a nice introduction. No complaints on my end.
If there's anything I need to add, Ross, just let me know.
And you'll have about 45 minutes to think about that. So at the end of the show, if you're like, hey, I forgot to talk about this, and this, just let us know. Okay, right. Jem, so I know we have a lot of topics we want to cover, but where do you want to start?
Let's start with Facebook paid events, because this is a very interesting move by Facebook. And of course, I found it interesting reading through the article. And actually, I went and checked, and I actually am eligible, and I've got my main page now signed up that I can do paid events. And part of it is for the first year, if you're using Facebook, and it was still a little confusing because they really throw a dig at Apple with their in-app purchases sort of thing, I guess. Yes. It's free for a year if you use Facebook, but I was still a little confused. Like, well, what do you mean by Facebook? Does that mean on my browser? And if you use Apple, it's like they're getting 30%, which is a pretty high charge. But the fact that you can actually create a paid Facebook event is an interesting dynamic because, now you don't have to like take people somewhere else to bring them on. And, this could be as simple as, I know Ross had been doing some $5 Fridays, and I don't know if this is something Ross would consider using Facebook for, if he's going to keep doing it the way he's doing it. What do you think, Ross?
Well, first of all, I like the idea. I like the idea that it reduces friction for participants in these events to be able to just have their Facebook Pay set up. They've got their credit card or whatever in, and it's basically one click. Maybe it's a couple clicks to, confirm or whatever, but they don't have to go to a website and get an email and then go to a private Zoom or, something else. It's like, it's all right there. It's a click and you go in, and it makes it easier for people not only to sign up at any time, but particularly, right before the event starts. Hey, I'm going to see if I'm available. All right, I'm available. Let me just click right in. You share it on Facebook before you start a live event. So, I think it's a great integration with live streaming. And I don't know what you mentioned you were qualified. What are the qualifications in order to get your page eligible?
I went in and acted like I was starting to create an event. And when you go down to the ticketing options, it was like, create a paid event through Facebook. And when I opened it up, it was basically, I clicked that I agreed to their terms. And then it was like, connected to, I guess, Facebook. And because I already have, I guess maybe because I have an ad account or whatever it may be, it let me go ahead and it said, hey, you're good to go. Because when I've looked at some of the monetization stuff when it comes to Facebook, especially when it comes to like videos, nowhere close to that. And I don't think I'd even pursue some of the metrics that they have you to do that. So I think it's just go in, create your event. You don't have to go through the process, and just go down to that part where I believe it says, it gives you one of your options to kind of have a paid event on Facebook. And so it worked for me by checking my page. I haven't checked some of my other pages to see if they would work as well. But yeah, because my main business page, I have under 1,000 followers, so it worked. And
well, that's good to know, because I think some of the monetization through a page threshold starts at like 10,000 followers or whatever, which puts it out of reach for a lot of people. But I think it's great. You mentioned like a $5 Fridays, which is kind of a Q&A type session that I do. And the only thing that I don't love about it is that people who are watching can't come on camera. But they did mention in the article the possibility of using Facebook Rooms for paid events. Now, that would be amazing if people could pay right on Facebook and then come into a room so they can ask the question right on camera, and, they could follow up on camera, or you can have a little networking before the event or after the event. So I think Facebook's on the right track with this. I'm excited about the possibilities of it.
Yeah. And Ross, I don't know how much you've played with Facebook Live Producer, Christian, kind of same question to you. I've almost been under the impression that if you want to do live streaming in these events, you have to use Facebook's Live Producer as opposed to, our favorite platform, StreamYard. And so I think that's, to your point, Ross, where I'm not necessarily a fan, because even if I wanted to bring people on camera through StreamYard, I can do that, in different ways, even in a group. But I don't necessarily want to have to use this paid platform and not be able to use StreamYard.
Would you be able to RTMP?
Yeah, that hasn't been
the question
clear.
Rather than if you didn't use the direct integration from StreamYard. Because the only time I've used Facebook Producer where I've really used it more than to just check the time or whatever, right, when I schedule from StreamYard, is when I've used my A10 Mini Pro, and I've streamed directly, not streaming from the computer, but streamed directly from the hardware to Facebook, which I did one time or two times just to test it out. And there you do connect through Producer, but that's just basically connecting, I think, through RTMP. So maybe you could do it with something like StreamYard, but it'd be interesting to test it out. And
right.
try an
Definitely
event.
will. I will say this. So just a couple of notes here. So if you do have, so the way this actually works, and Jim, I know you mentioned you could go in and create an event and it prompted you, but there is a separate page that people have to go to in order to set up the paid online events. And actually, I'm going to pull that up here so you can see that. But basically, if you go to this URL, I've dropped that in the comments, by the way. It's facebook.com/paid_online_events. And you're going to get to pick the pages from your list, and you actually have to sign up for pages. So you or paid online events. You have to actually accept the terms,
Right.
and then you actually have to set up the payment account based on the account that you have. So your page needs to be in that list to begin with. It may not be for some people, so keep that in mind. I think overall, I think from a business perspective, I think that this process needs to be a little bit easier for people. I think that's a good step. I think that it. Like to your point, Ross, it doesn't need to be, well, somebody pays here and then they have to go to something else and then have to wait for an email and go through this whole process. You just want to be let into, that area. And I think that's where hey, drop me into messenger rooms or something like that. I think that would make a lot of sense.
I would love that.
To where it can all be within Facebook. Now, to your point about RTMP and things like that, it's a more, obviously a little bit more advanced topic. I think that it'd be nice if it had that. I don't see Facebook giving us that though. What do you think, Jim? Do you think
it's it kind of goes back to what is Facebook's ultimate plan to make everybody do everything on their platform through their platform, as opposed to these third-party tools, which give people a lot of options. And I know for me personally, I think even as we look at other options, right, the ability to live stream off of Facebook in your own gate. I mean, I know ViewStub is a company that's been working with StreamYard. If I can do everything off of Facebook and not have to have these same sort of charges, am I going to want to use Facebook? So I think people like the flexibility more so than platforms. And we're all on rented land. And if you're using their Apple, which I'm still not sure that I completely understand Facebook's comment other than it's a dig at Apple, like not giving them a break. It's a 30% tax. That's significant. And it would make me say, oh, I'm staying back because I don't want to do that. The other part of the fine print, you have to have $100 in earnings before they transfer it to you as well. I believe if you're using the Facebook Pay.
And here's the thing, that's
cumulative. Like you can do 100 events and make $1 at each event, or is it like, if you don't make $100 in your first event, then you go back to zero?
Yeah, I think it's cumulative, but still, right? When you get paid, you want to get paid. I mean, that's almost like when I remember back in the days of when I would use eBay with PayPal. It's like when you sold stuff, like at first it's like, we got to make sure that you actually delivered your stuff before we give you your money.
Right.
I will say this. I mean, the $100 threshold is not that big a deal, I think. And the reason I say that is because most affiliate platforms that you use, they require a threshold. And I've noticed that threshold has been going higher and higher for a lot of these
as the
channels.
Commissions go lower and lower on certain platforms.
Yes. Well, it's actually interesting. So actually what they're doing in a lot of these is they're saying, okay, it's, $100 threshold. And then here's the other problem that you run into. So let's say it's $100 and you're only making like $8 to $10 an order. Then you have to sell like 10. Well, here's the thing. You might have like a really hot period where you sell a bunch and then you get right to that threshold. And then those companies also have they have a term in place where if you're inactive, i.e. if you're not generating revenue, they actually can then take the money back. So it does gets to be a little frustrating. So the key thing is, they do have to make money on these. So I like this idea. I mean, I see nothing wrong with this from a business perspective. I think that if I'm a business, if it's another channel I can potentially use, sign up for it.
So I guess on the Apple thing, Jim, and this is going to be going off of kind of guess and assumption, which probably isn't a great way to go. But if they were to pay and sign up for the event on the web, that would be directly with Facebook's not taking anything for the first year because the idea is to support small businesses. But if you have an app in the App Store, and so somebody pays through the Facebook mobile app, then Apple has a deal, like if you're in the App Store, because that's what killed. Remember, there was a live streaming app called Busker, and they would let you keep a good percentage of what you made if people gave you tips while you were live streaming. And then once it came to them, having to turn so much money over to Apple, or, I don't know if they had to do it for Google, but certainly for Apple, that became the end of the line for them having a sustainable business. So I think that's probably where the 30% comes in. So maybe you encourage people sign up on the web. I don't know. And I don't know whether you can, if you sign up on mobile, then you access through mobile. If you sign up on the web, or you can sign up on one and access through the other. It's going to be interesting to test this out. But I think I'm cautiously optimistic about the possibilities for this. And I'm even more excited about the idea of using Facebook Rooms, because I haven't really figured out why I need Facebook Rooms yet. But if
so you don't have to use Zoom.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's 18 different options, right, for having a one-on-one meeting or a group of 4 people getting together for a chat. But now, if this is an easy way to take payment and move people into a private event or an event behind the paywall, then I think it's great. I think it's great. And I guess they're using the same event type page as you would if you set up a free event, where I haven't seen it yet, but I'm looking.
Yeah,
when I
went in to like actually create an event on my page, it was just like any other event, and just down in the ticketing aspect, because even there, right, if I wanted to go to Eventbrite or something else, that's where I picked like how I wanted people to register for the event, and it gave me that option that Christian shared. I think another great point you bring up, though, and this kind of gets into the behavior of the end user. With so many people using mobile devices to access Facebook to begin with, are you going to be able to get, because they're paying their $10, $5 regardless. Are they going to care that you're losing 30% off your ticket price if they sign up through the mobile app? So I don't know, like, hey, please go sign up here so I get to keep all my money. I don't know if that's
yeah, I mean, not unless there's some way that you can provide a better experience through the desktop or through the laptop. But yeah, I mean, people are on the go. They like to use mobile. Even when they're home, they don't want to have to sit at a desk or a table. They want to be able to just grab a phone or grab an iPad and do what they do online. So you're right, Jim.
And by the way, in addition to that, just a quick note, when you are setting up your Facebook page for paid online events, the payment process, if you're, for example, an LLC, they do ask for your EIN. So there is a tax part as well that's going to go into that. So, I mean, the thing I think you'll see here is, and this happens a lot in the in the App Store on iOS, and it's the fact that people will actually charge higher prices if they, for example, are going to be giving 30% to Apple. I have nothing against Apple getting 30%. I think it makes a lot of sense. They're providing the platform, the community, all that sort of stuff. And that's a conversation for another show, another time. But just keep that in mind. I mean, you may have to, you want to do some calculations. What's my break-even point? I may have to charge more. Just play around with some different things to figure out what's actually going to work for you. So anything else you want to add about Facebook paid online events, guys?
No, I think we've beat that dead horse. Let's move on to Facebook's changing the follow process on business pages, because I think this is very interesting.
So I know Facebook pages have been getting rid of likes for quite a while, and they've moved into the follow button. Great. What else we got going on here, Jim?
Well, it's the fact that when you follow a page, you're actually able to set up what exactly you want to see. So as you can see here, right? And I guess where I'm curious, right? Because this gets into the whole ads thing. If I say, I want to see every time that Ross goes live or you go live as a notification, is that going to be 100% of my page followers, or is it still going to be an algorithmic thing of just a small percentage are going to see that? I've always been of the opinion anyway that follows in a sense are more important than likes, because just because someone likes your page doesn't mean that they're following your content. That was always an option. And following meant that they're interested. Doesn't mean they approved, but it means they're interested in what you're putting out there. It could be your competition. But now that you're breaking this down into certain things, you could literally follow a page and have all of this stuff off. So it's almost like the like in a sense. And so you kind of get into that whole metric of now that you have these followers. Now, granted, on the other end, will I, as a page owner, be able to get a breakdown of like how many people that follow me are following me for these different areas? That would be really cool to know. Like, okay, or now you can say, hey guys, make sure you are following me for live videos, so you know whenever we go live. So I think it's definitely a good tool. The question is, what are the ramifications on the other end?
100% agree with you.
Go ahead,
Ross.
Christian. No, go ahead,
Go ahead.
Christian.
I was going to say, yeah. But
Oh, hey, sorry about this. What I was thinking is that the way I interact with most pages, for example, the Social Chefs page, right? The way I interact is watching live videos, and the pages that I go to, those videos tend to show up in my feed. So I've never really thought about parsing out what kind of information I get in my news feed from content type. So this is a totally new concept to me. I guess I could see where you might just turn on live video if that's what you like to watch from a creator or a page, and that's what you want to get in your feed. But up until now, I've kind of thought I'm either all in or I'm not on a page. Like either I'm interested in the page and I want to see what they're doing, or I'm not interested in the page, and just by default of not visiting that page that often, they kind of fall off my news feed and off my radar. But this is also, I think, a way for saying to people who may follow a lot of pages, all you have to do is turn on my notifications for live video. That's the major thing that we do on my page. Like I might post occasionally something about a show I'm doing or whatever in the future, but the main thing I want people to do is show up when I go live on my page. The rest of it is sort of not as important, and it all depends on how you're using your page. For some people, going live may be the least important thing they do, and so they want to make sure you don't miss those special offers, those posts that they put out where, they may really be driving traffic to their website. Like I say, for me, my page is there for me to go live.
Yeah, Scott Ayers has got an interesting comment too. He says he predicts that the like is going away to pages because it's too much of an endorsement in this day and age. And I think that's a great point, because and I think I've always, because it's been a long time, I would rather you follow me than like me. I don't, because it kind of goes back to the whole aspect of the following is what gets you in people's news feeds. And I agree 100% with Ross. I mean, if I'm following a page, I'm all in. I'm not going to say, oh, well, I only want to see this. What did you think, Christian?
I think, so there's one thing I want to actually make sure we highlight here, and it's the breakdown of the follow settings. And I think this is important. So for example, you've got favorites, you've got highlights, and you've got all, as you can see here, and you've got offers. So here's actually the breakdown. And it's the fact that depending on the topics, some of them get, it still is algorithmic based. If I want to see posts from a page, I can see highlights. I can see all up. So, okay, highlights. I don't really know what highlights are exactly. Like for a page, what does that constitute? Is that like, a digest? Is it, a mix of like certain things that I interact with? I'm not sure exactly, but you've got highlights, you've got all updates, or you've got none. And so you've got posts for videos, highlights, all or none. However, for live video, it's all or none. So that's kind of interesting. You can kind of mix and match video, but you can't mix and match live video. And then obviously like offers, you can switch to having them on and off, and then just choose to unfollow a page. I think overall, I personally, I don't go that much into depth when I like a Facebook page. I don't go into the page and say like, oh, hey, let me now make all these settings. I click the like button, and then I assume that Facebook's going to take that and kind of run with it and do whatever they're going to do based on the algorithm.
They know so much about us, Christian, that like when that page that I like that, you know, does a variety of stuff has a post about live streaming, they're going to find it and they're going to find a way to put that in my feed because they know everything that I do online, right? So like during college basketball season, they know like there's always, I'm getting all these posts about Virginia because I'm always going to Virginia basketball websites and stuff, and they're following me wherever I go online. But you know, during the off season or when the season's canceled, it's all 100% live video and some podcasting posts.
And by the way, Scott makes another good point here, you know, about how we used to, this is really because going back the breadth of knowledge. So we used to be fans of pages, which meant we kind of agreed. So by the way, Ross, I want to apologize for cutting off your head here. Scott put a huge comment here. Might be a bug. I don't know. Yes, do it again. So it went from being fans of a page to liking a page, which actually was in a way in endorsing it, to, you know, in this case, following a page, which is not really an endorsement. So it's agreeing, but not endorsing, I think. So I don't know. I mean, I think that, like, do you want to add, Ross?
I was going to say, historically, Scott is 100% accurate. What happens, though, when we change the terms to destigmatize something, people just follow along to the next term. So fan became like, which was less than saying, you know, you're 100% in on this, but like became an endorsement. Believe me, now people are going to judge who you follow, what pages you follow, as an endorsement. And of course you shouldn't look at it that way, because you follow things that are of interest to you, and being something of interest to you isn't necessarily something you endorse or you even like. It's just of interest, right? You know, there's sort of the old joke about Howard Stern, right? The people who listened to him most were the people who wanted to hear what he had to say next. And those were the people who loved him, and the people who hated him were an even bigger group wanting to hear what he had to say next. So just because you want to see what somebody says on their page doesn't mean you're endorsing them or their content or love them. It means that, hey, you're interested one way or the other, right? You may be...
We're following for the train wreck.
You may be hate following. I don't know what the expression is, right? But it's...
We follow because we want to see the next train wreck on their page. So
or they're a competitor, or they're, you know, they're putting out good industry information, even if you don't like the way that they do business, what have you. So I think we really shouldn't, but that's more of a culture of Facebook thing. We shouldn't be judging people because they want to be informed, and so they click to get information from a variety of sources, right? That they endorse all those sources. But my concern is now who you follow will become who you're a fan of, or at least first they'll become who you like, but eventually it's going to morph into, you're following this page, you must love that company or that brand or that celebrity.
Right. And Christian, even going back to what you said, because as it is with all the constant changes on Facebook, and I will just say the average user is not going to have to now spend the time to go through page by page. What is my behavior for this page's post? The concern would be, right, because sometimes when changes happen, all of a sudden things are either turned all the way on or all the way off. And now you got to go educate people. Hey, Facebook just did this update, and if you're not seeing my stuff, you got to go into this setting and blah, blah, blah. And they'll just like, I give up.
You know, I'll tell you what this reminds me of a little bit. It reminds me of how, if you're on, I don't know if you guys use Pinterest at all, but you can follow a board, or you can follow the person, which means you follow all of their boards. But either way, you enter into their follower count, and you count as a follower, whether you follow one board or you follow their entire panoply of content, right? So I'm wondering with this, somebody's a follower whether they just follow your offers or they follow every one of those content types, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. I mean, how this goes. I mean, I think, Jim, to your point, so if I'm a business right now, here's what I need to do. I think if I'm a business, I need to make sure I have a good strategy and make sure I'm publishing good content, quality content that people are interested in. And if I notice that I'm not reaching a lot of people, I need to run some sort of re-engagement campaign to get in front of those people. And yeah, like I can adjust my settings, and I just need to educate myself and then potentially educate my customers on some of these changes to make sure that they're seeing content that I want them to see. Anything else you want to add on this, or you want to move on?
I have an interesting question based on what you just said. If you opt out of certain types of posts, like you only want to get live video, if you then run a video ad on your page, does that mean I won't be targeted? Or when it comes to ads, that doesn't impact who would get targeted?
I don't think it's going to impact the ads. I mean, I don't know the answer to that. I'll be honest. I don't think it will, but I think that's a really good question. I mean, maybe it's something that Facebook hasn't thought about yet. They roll out follow settings. Jeff, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think it's a good question. We'll have to get an ads expert on to tell us the answer to that one.
So where do we go next, Jim?
Let's talk about, since we're talking about ads, let's talk about a change to groups, because I think this is a big deal. And basically what they're doing is they're going to allow sponsored posts into groups. And I'm not sure that I'm a fan of this, because I think people have always looked at groups as their safe place. And so if all of a sudden now I'm starting to see ads in groups, now there are, I think, a couple of caveats. You have to have 1,000 members in your group. It has to be a public group. But for me, it's a turnoff. If I'm going to start seeing ads in groups, I may be likely to leave the group. You guys may feel differently, but it's all into this. Let's see how we can monetize things. And now let's figure out how we monetize groups. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts?
Ross, go ahead.
Yeah, I wish I built a really big group over the last 4 years. Now, one of the things that stood out for me in this is it could be positive if you have relationships with brands, and let's say they're sponsoring a special event, an offer, something to where, like, I have a post that's a branded post where I tag Fusion Marketing, and you're giving a 10 consulting calls away or something like that. We're not asking you to do that. That'd be ridiculous, right, for your business. But let's just say we're doing something like that, right? I don't think that anybody would leave a group because I was bringing special offers, or I was able to give somebody give people a 30% discount on hardware because such and such manufacturer wanted access to my community. I think if you're spamming people with ads where you're just throwing in anything and everything, that isn't going to work. But if you're creating posts where you're tagging a brand that you're partnering with on that post for whatever that offer or idea or event is, I don't know how much people will care, as long as the content is good and it fits natively into the general flow of posts within that group.
Yeah, that's actually an excellent point, Ross. I think you hit on it, right? It's got to definitely be something specific to that group, and I think that's that example of an event or something like that would be great. Just like I know Agora Pulse has got their social media summit coming up on LinkedIn for free. That would be great to share in a group for people that maybe want to up their LinkedIn game.
Right.
Yeah, good point.
I will say this: I like the idea of having sponsored posts in groups, but I think the other part though is I think groups really need some updates to them, because a lot of times, like, there's a big problem I noticed in groups. So if somebody goes to a Facebook group and you want to see the latest post, for example, but not necessarily the latest activity, that feature doesn't stick. And so what'll happen a lot of times is people go into the group thinking they're seeing the latest, post, and it's, well, hey, this is actually an old post, but it's got new comments on it. And I feel like adding branded content to that is just going to, I think, make it a lot more, I think, frustrating for users because they're not really going to see they're not really understand what's going on. I think if they're starting to see these, these sponsored ads and whatnot in groups. So,
Right.
Well,
and I think too, I think too, you got to remember people are starting to also have the ability to, in a sense, do these ad blockers in general. And I see Chris has got a comment in there how Facebook's ads are driving him away from the platform. And I would tend to agree with Chris's as well. I mean, I personally don't like I opted out of political ads. I don't need to see that in my news feed all the time, right? I know there's politics going on, but I'd rather do my research somewhere else than get ads thrown in my face. And and I would have to agree with Chris. I think if everything you're seeing is ads, at some point you're just like you become numb to what's going on with the content.
Yeah, I mean, I think the group owner has to be very selective and think in terms of, is this helping the members of the group? Is this something they would be excited about, an offer that they're going to be like, yes, I want to jump on this or not? Because if it's just, hey, I'm going to take some money and give somebody access to running their messaging in my group, that probably isn't going to go over that well. And the way I'm looking at these brand tags, I guess it could just be a sponsored post. It doesn't have to be some sort of partnership, but that would be the smart way, would be to do some sort of partnership that enhances what you can offer people in your group, or provides them something that they can get at a reduced price, or get a trial of something they have to be able to benefit from. Otherwise, and given the amount of money and whatever, you're probably better off for keeping a customer long term promoting your own products and services, which people accept. When they go into a group, you kind of accept that most groups, there's no promotion from the user, but the person who runs the group will be able to promote their own events and services and things like that. And I think that's probably the better way to monetize long term, because those people opted into your group because they want your content, or they want to be a part of your community, so they accept that you're selling. I don't know how well they accept you bringing in other offers, unless, again, it's something that they really understand how they benefit from.
Definitely. So anything else you want to add about this? I mean, Facebook sponsored posts in groups, or do you want to move on?
Let's move on. And let's actually talk about post-level analytics for groups is another Facebook.
Sure.
We said this was going to be a Facebook day. It pretty much has been a Facebook day.
Yeah.
So, Jem, what's going on here?
So adding a new feature to groups. Right now, you're starting to maybe get an idea as this rolls out. How effective is your group, right? Are you getting engagement on your post? As you can see here, you're able to see reactions, comments, photo views, shares. So these are the sort of things that kind of goes back to, is my content in my group effective? Are my group members engaged? So I think it's just kind of a natural progression to, if we can't measure it, why are we doing it?
Right.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it's positive. I think it's positive, and I think it shows as well that Facebook is going to continue prioritizing groups and communities and rooms and events and things that are smaller than you posting to everyone, but people are gathering together where there's some privacy settings and people are talking amongst like-minded people, or people who have the same interests. And I think that's a part of this, right? If they weren't going all in on groups, they wouldn't be releasing all these different features and finding all these different ways. And I believe also they now, or maybe they have been for a little while, you can actually, depending on whether you meet a certain threshold, but you can actually charge for membership to your group, and people pay through Facebook versus, you send them to a website and then they, become a member, and then you let them into a private group. So Facebook wants all this. They want to take a piece. They know what you're doing anyway, right? They know that people are using Facebook groups for their own monetization efforts outside of Facebook. So they want to get in on that, right? They want to get a piece of that. And this is all part of saying we're the robust platform. You don't need a course tool that has a membership component to it, right? You don't need a WordPress plugin. We're going to give you everything you need right here. And this is a start in that direction. That would be my guess. I don't know 100%, but that's what it looks like from a big picture standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I think here's the other thing. I like the fact that we get access to, or potentially get access to analytics. Again, though, it's something else that a person is going. It's almost like too big, too fast in a way, because I think a lot of people don't dig into analytics enough. The analytics are going to tell you everything you need to know, pretty much about the health of your website, about the health of your page, your group, and so forth. And so I'm glad they're doing this, but I also think at the same time for groups, I mean, I don't really think they really need to do too much from an analytics standpoint, only because if I'm already in a group and I'm managing that group, I see the same question, like I see the same people commenting on a post, like I can actually make my decisions without having the insights to tell me that necessarily. But I am glad that they're actually at least adding something a lot more than just, hey, here's how many people joined your group, and here's some of the activity and how many people left and whatnot. So anything else you want to add to this, Jim or Ross?
Just I think you should take a qualitative scan of your group and your page, no matter how many analytics you should have. You want to see what the conversations are, how deep they go, who's participating, and get a feel as though you were a user from a qualitative standpoint, because that's how somebody decides whether they want to follow your page or join your group. So the analytics are great as long as you figure out which metrics actually move the needle for you and your business and your group. But do take a qualitative scan of your page and your group and really all your social media over time in order to see where things are and see if you can somewhat see it through the eyes of a user, a visitor, a consumer, a sponsor, whomever you're trying to attract.
Definitely. So, Jem, where do you want to go next? I know we got a couple more topics. I know we don't have to cover all of them today.
Well, let's go to one last topic before we start asking Ross a couple questions. Let's talk about Adobe Photoshop's update that is in the works, and that's about, this gets into the whole transparency thing. So they're going to have a tagging system that's going to allow you to identify edited images, and I think this is huge because, as I like to joke, and only part of our audience will get this based on their age, is it live or is it Memorex? Is it really who we think that person is? Because, right, that's kind of always been the joke is, I can take a picture, right, and I can superimpose Ross's face or your face, and it makes it look like you're there. Well, it's getting so slick that you can't tell. And so I think it's important for people to know that this photo has, in a sense, been edited, and it's not truly this person at that location. I think from a transparency standpoint, it's extremely important.
Yeah, I like this feature. I mean, just the fact that it's going to give you the ability to potentially identify some of that content if it's something that's been altered, whether it's in a meme or if it's actually editing the person itself in the photo, or changing somebody else's photo and making it your own, for example. I think this is almost it's a long time coming for something like this. What do you guys think?
Well, I think it's interesting that the New York Times and Twitter are two of the ones who are working with Adobe on this, because they've certainly been called out and found out for having worked with, certainly the Times has worked with photographers who have put a picture from one part of the world, where there's a war zone, and claimed that something was going on in another part of the world, because burned out buildings are often tough to tell where in the world they came from, or, and then somebody who's an expert in Photoshop lines it up and like, hey, these two exact things of smoke are exactly the same. And hey, look, the same doll fell like right outside the building or whatever. Isn't that interesting? So people have done some amazing things on discovering. And so it can't hurt because, obviously newspapers and Twitter should know if somebody's manipulating news content. On the other hand, for parodies and spoofs and stuff, it's fine to know. Not that we probably can't already tell, but it shouldn't mean that they should limit the ability, like Twitter shouldn't limit the ability of people to have fun with video and do things. It's just letting people know in case they don't know.
Yeah, I definitely think so. So anything you want to add on this?
No, I think we've hit on a lot of the key points, and be interested. If we got some photographers out there watching live or on replay, love to hear your comments on what you think of Photoshop, because I know a lot of you use that product to work on your product after you've taken those initial pictures.
For sure. And we'll have to ask George Demanis next week as well. He's going to be our guest, and I will have to ask him. So what we're going to do now is, okay, so we've got a few more topics we want to talk about, but what we're going to do is we're going to put those in the blog post recap. That'll go out over the weekend. But what I want to do now is shift gears. I want to talk with Ross about monetizing live video. So if you want to get the email update when we publish this post, go to socialchefs.com/daily, and you'll be able to sign up there. So, Jared, do you have any questions? Well, what questions do we have prepared for Ross?
Yeah. So Ross, does it make sense to monetize your business with live streaming?
Depends. It certainly, for a lot of businesses, is something worth trying, and I think it can be very effective for a lot of businesses, but you have to look at the time you have available. For example, if your schedule is completely booked with clients and your products are all sold out, do you want to give up an hour of billing in order to go live to do what exactly, right? So think about if you're, and if you are short-staffed, you have to figure out if it works for your schedule, number one. Number two is you have to figure out what are you good at? What do you enjoy doing when it comes to content creation? So there's a certain amount of innate ability that people have for this, and there's a certain amount of experience. People pick it up sooner than later. I think most people can become good at it, but perhaps your passion is writing blog posts, or it's taking photos, or it's podcasting, or any number of other ways to create content, sharing micro content through stories. You have to decide if it's something, one, you feel that you're good at, or somebody on your team or you can hire is good at, and two, is it something that you enjoy? Because if you really don't look forward to going live ever, and you find it's, like the last thing you want to do, that's going to come across. I mean, this is something where when you do it, you have to be a little bit excited about it. You have to be energetic. You have to want to talk and communicate with people. If you do like doing it and you do feel comfortable that you have, it works with your skill set, then it can be tremendously powerful, because it's really the closest thing to having a conversation with someone in person. You can answer questions from the chat. You can bring people on, and you're dealing with customers in a way that, again, unless they come into your store or you have a client meeting with them, there's nothing other than live video that really creates this type of getting to know somebody and being able to provide value in real time right away. So yes, I'm very high on what it can do, but I also understand that it may not be the best move for everybody.
And I like the point, by the way, that you say that it might not be the right move for everyone, because a lot of people, and Jim, you and I talk about this a lot on our podcast Launcher Live. A lot of people think that live video is this, it's a silver bullet. It's all of a sudden going to start, driving sales, for example. And the hardest part about doing live video is if you don't have an audience, people tuning in, asking questions, making that more engaging. Well, to your point, Ross, there's better ways to monetize. there are better ways to also engage your audience at times. It depends on the topic. If you don't have that community, you have to do something else to build that community. So there's a lot of changing that has to go on. What else
I do think you can
Yeah.
build up a community through live streaming. You can certainly build up a following.
Okay.
And maybe it's a way to even leapfrog over starting from scratch on some social channels if you don't have much of a following. But it's a long game when you're doing that. You don't go on in your first live stream, you're likely to be making sales, right? You have to build relationships and let people know and promote. It's a lot of work to get to where you have a community that's now showing up for you. First, you have to really show up for them and provide value and be consistent. And then over time, they know you as the go-to person in that niche. So when they need somebody who carries your product or provides your service, you're the first person they think of because they're coming out to watch your show. They've asked you advice through your live streams. That's how I see it working for a lot of people when it works. It's that investment up front, and then it pays off down the road.
Definitely. So, Jim, do we have any other questions for Ross?
Yeah, we do have one more question. And also for everyone out there watching, we actually just recently interviewed Ross on a podcast episode of Launch Your Live, and we go into a lot more detail about some of these things. But Ross, what are some ways to monetize live video? And could you give us, say, 3 examples?
Sure. So one example would be selling. That's literally going on, and I have a product here. Here's how it works. Here's the benefits. Here's the features. Here's how you use it. Ask me questions about whether it's right for you, and I'll tell you some of the good things about it. And that's one way to do it. There are now more opportunities than ever to do that. Amazon Live integrates a shopping carousel right below your live stream. So the products that you talk about, people can just click on and buy, and you get an affiliate commission. I believe it's a skill set worth learning. A lot of people get into live streaming and they take the approach that I was talking about before, which is providing value and building relationships. And a year later, 2 years later, they still have never asked for they've never put a call to action out. They've never asked anybody to buy anything, right? Because they're afraid to sell. So learning that skill set is worth doing. And I think it's easier to learn it and to do it in the beginning by doing something like selling affiliate products on Amazon Live versus going on your own show your very first time and going, buy my XYZ when people don't even know you. But I think that's a great opportunity. There's, of course, other types of affiliate relationships you can do to sell. And ultimately, you should be doing things that are selling your own products and services because, after all, what's a better way than to sell it to people who are already interested in what you do and your content? So selling is one way. Number 2 would be what I mentioned before. You provide value, build relationships, and you're not necessarily directly selling so much as you're talking about your industry, and people know that you're knowledgeable and they get value from what you do, and then you're top of mind. And the third way I call the portfolio method, which is basically live video is a great way to quickly create high quality content. And then you take that content and you repurpose it as a podcast. You repurpose it on social media. You put a clip on YouTube. You use it to enliven and enrich your social media presence and anywhere else people would go to Google you. So the idea of what I call the portfolio method is converting warm leads. And that is when somebody says, Jim and Christian are great, you should work with them. And I go, wow, I trust your recommendation. Well, let me throw them into Google. And then what comes up, let's say, is the About page on your website. And I go to your About page, and I see you embedded something from a live video. And I go, wow, I like how these guys talk about the issues of the week. I like how they talk to their guests and relate to people. I think I could work with them. Or, I go, this isn't for me. But either way, for you, you probably are going to find that if you put your best stuff out there where it can easily be found through a Google search, that stuff converts and people know you went live, so they trust and they like what you're doing, and they give you that little extra credit for going live, even if it's in a replay, even if it's in a clip, because whatever you did, you still had to react in real time. And even if you edit and splice, there's still something about it that's different than when we see a produced video. And so I think selling relationships and value over the long term, and then how you repurpose that content so that you're at your best when somebody has already a favorable impression, but they need that confirmation to decide that they want to work with you, do business with you, buy your product or service.
And Ross, you bring up some great points, and a couple things too that I think even for me, like, how did I learn about Ross Brand? I learned about Ross Brand because I saw his live stream universe show. And then as I got to know him more and connected with him on social, we actually got to meet in person. We've become friends. Same thing, Christian, we've never met in person, but we met because of live streaming. And so you got to remember, it's about awareness, right? You're building that know, like, and trust through your live video. And I don't know about you guys, but how many times have you had someone maybe out of the blue say, I love your show, I love what you're doing. They've never commented, made a reaction. So they're out there. And so it's so important to be, on a sense, on top of your game at all times, because you're being watched, whether you like it or not.
That's right. And people are watching on replay, and you don't know that they're watching, because if they don't click a like button, or they don't jump into the broadcast and open it up on the live, you don't know that they're watching, but they may be listening. They may be consuming a replay. They may be watching your videos on however you've repurposed them, right? So that's the value. Like, even if people don't show up for your live show, if you put a 1-minute video on Instagram, you're reaching how many hundreds or thousands of people on Instagram who will never probably watch your live show, but they know what you're doing. They know what you're talking about. And over time, it's like, oh, I need somebody who does social media. Well, I see Jim and Christian talking about it every week. They've got these cool clips on. So that's how you can sometimes benefit from your live show, even when you aren't live or aren't getting people to come to watch 60 minutes of a replay, through the clips you share. I know Christian's been doing flash briefings, which is another way to get in front of another audience and communicate with people where they're at. And, you guys do great blog posts. So you kind of have the whole package. People should look at what you guys are doing as far as how to optimize the post game, so to speak, after the show is over, how you provide that content for people to find you and engage with.
Fantastic. So do we have any other questions for Ross?
Actually, Tim, my great co-host from the Tim and Jim show, is watching from Shahola, Pennsylvania, where the Bears and the Turkeys and Dunkin' Donuts are in high demand. And he said, wanted to know from Ross, what's the best way that you are actually generating revenue with live streaming, in your opinion?
So I would go down the list and say selling an affiliate is probably the smallest amount. Okay. The relationships and the providing value is the middle amount. And then that portfolio method, that converting warm leads, many of my clients come through word of mouth, and then they tell me, okay, I watched your video, I listened to your podcast, I went back and checked out your old flash briefing, whatever it is, right? It's always they went and Googled, and then they found something, and that was the thing that put them over the top to actually reach out and work with me. But the building relationships and providing value over time and doing a show that's, I feel, is very professional and, relating well to people, treating people well, that's also been, that's certainly been a nice revenue producer. The sales thing is nice in terms of like, it's a little money here and a little money there, but it's not, I would say 3, 2, 1 in terms of the three things that I discussed. Definitely is how it's worked for me. And I think that's how it's going to be for most people. But if you develop your own high ticket item that might be like a course or, a mastermind group or something like that, which are not things that I'm pushing a lot right now, then it can all, it may be you do a live webinar and next thing you know, you get 10 people to sign up and selling becomes the number one thing. Or maybe you or I or somebody else builds a big following for our Amazon Lives over time. And then instead of a couple of purchases here and there and, $20, $30, but, we end up selling in volume because enough people like what we're doing. But I would say it's good to have a mix of all three. And a single live stream can have a mix of all three, but generally one is a dominant kind of motivation for a piece of content that you're creating.
Great
points. One other point I would also add is that the Facebook paid online events that we talked about today, I mean, that could be another way to also monetize your live stream as well. Again, you got to figure out that pricing though. You're going to have to play with it because it's basically brand new. So it is brand new.
And testing is so important. And since Scott Ayers from the Social Media Lab is watching, I'm sure he'll maybe come up with an experiment on this. So it's a challenge to you, Scott.
That'd be cool.
So now we're going to switch to the third segment real quick of the show. And this is tool time, where we discuss 2 tools that we found that we think can help you as a business. Jim, do you want to highlight that first tool that we want to discuss?
Yeah, let's talk about NeuralCam. I think one of the things that is really been a challenge for people, especially during these last few months, is if you want to call it your classic webcams, the Logitechs that a lot of us are fans are, they're just not available. And so one of the things that I don't know if you're going to pull this up or not, because we're still seeing the tool time. The NeuralCam allows you to take your iPhone, and this app will then allow you to connect this, but you have to hardwire it to your Mac. And now you've got yourself a great new, webcam using your phone and all the great stuff that your phone does, and it lets you do some pretty neat little features. This is, I know we've talked about a couple others. So if you're struggling with like, oh my gosh, I can't stand the camera that's built into my computer, I want to have better video, I think this looks like a really good thing to try out. They've got a free version, and then you can pay, to upgrade it to get a few more features. So it's something that I've downloaded. I think I will play with it because I always like to see what things can do. And it might even be, as an example, if you're using StreamYard and had a second computer, hook this up to that second computer to make that second cam maybe do some things that you're not doing on your main computer. So I think it's definitely a good tool for people that are having a hard time finding a webcam to up their video capability.
And I will say this, I've actually played with it. I think it's actually a pretty nice little tool. So it has a couple of features on it. So for example, there's the ability to add like a circle light, almost like adding a ring light to you, but it's using artificial intelligence. In addition to that, it's got low light mode. You can add some various overlays to your picture to give it different looks. So for example, you can add a cinematic look, you can add a crisp look, you can make it, a forest look, so it basically removes all the color. So that's one feature. And then there's another feature I thought that was useful, and it's called a gesture guard. So it's something like this. Like if I bring my hand up to my face, using the artificial intelligence, it actually will blur out the camera. And so I'll be like, say I go scratch my face, it'll actually blur out the camera if I have that on. So kind of neat. I thought it was pretty good. You do have to connect it to your desktop, as Jem mentioned, and you do have to also install a small piece of software. But it works very well, actually, surprisingly well for the ability to use my my iPhone as a camera. Ross, did you want to add something?
Well, the iPhone is a great camera. I mean, if you have an iPhone 10 or 11, you've got a tremendous camera within your iPhone, and why not make use of it with the prices? As Jim mentioned, they're either not available or the prices have skyrocketed if you were going to order it on Amazon or eBay or something like that. So you've got a great camera in your phone. Why not make use of it? If you've already got a webcam, it's great for a second camera. I've heard great things about NeuralCam. I downloaded it last night, but wasn't on my computer. So I understand from what you're saying and from the directions, you need to hardwire it to set it up. Do you also need it to be hardwired via USB the entire time that you're using it, or is there anything else you can do with it?
I was hardwired the whole time.
Okay.
So I had to hardwire the whole time. So,
but the features sound like they're awesome. You've played around with them, Christian, so you know that they work. And I've heard from people it's a great option. One of the things that happens if you plug your phone in, say, via HDMI, which you can do, you're not going to get a clean HDMI feed. You're going to get your native camera's going to have all the little icons of, where you press the button and where you change the lighting and all that. So this can be a good option. Plus, you don't need to get a capture card or get a HDMI encoder or whatever. You can actually just plug it in USB, turn it into a webcam, and I mean, you probably in many situations are going to have a better camera than you would with a consumer webcam, because phones are really, really good. They're just really good. I don't know how else to say it.
No, that's a great point, Ross. And I think I what I'm curious about, of course, it may just be too hard from a technology standpoint. And we've talked about some others on some previous episodes. Every one of these is requiring the hardwiring of your phone to the computer. I think the ideal thing would be if somehow there was a way to like Bluetooth it. I don't know that that'll happen. That may just be a bridge too far, especially from a quality standpoint. But definitely, it's an easy way to up your video game with your computer. And even if you've got a long enough cord, right, you can have it on a tripod and give yourself a different perspective and work with your mic. So yeah, I think it's great that these companies are doing this technology, because you're right. I think like the iPhone 11, I think will even go to 4K.
Yeah, I think I've recorded in 4K, and I have an iPhone 10 something. So it's amazing. Like if you make a 1080 video out of it, even though you shoot it in 4K, but then I make a 1080 video out of it for YouTube, it looks incredible. And I've only done that a few times when I've gone out somewhere to shoot video, but now we're not going out anywhere, but it is amazing. It really is high quality. And why wait for that webcam if you can download this and use it for free? Or I assume it's a small payment. Did you see how much it is to upgrade?
Yes, it's $5 a month or $30 for a year. Which, if you think about it, I mean, you've already put $1,000 plus into that smartphone. Why not continue to get more life out of it? Instead of dropping another $50 to $70 on a low level webcam, $100 plus on a higher level one, or upwards of $300 to $500 for a DSLR, for example. So
I love that gestures feature. I mean, if you're somebody who accidentally runs naked in front of your camera or whatever, somehow the AI will block that out, and you won't have one of those embarrassing moments that go viral. Fortunately, that's never happened, but now you've got an extra layer of protection if you need it.
Yeah, and it's pretty quick. I mean, in testing it seems to work pretty well. So I would, I'd recommend doing this. I would recommend playing around with it. To Jem's point, if you have a smartphone and you want to use this app, make sure you get a tripod and you put that phone on there. There's nothing worse than walking around with that phone or trying to hold it up while you're trying to do something else. Make it a little bit easier on yourself. So, Jen, you want to move on to the next tool?
Yeah, let's talk about Cleanfeed.
Sure. So what is Cleanfeed?
So Cleanfeed is a way for you to record audio with multiple folks. And because I think a lot of times the challenge with even programs like StreamYard is if you want to use, as an example, you want to record your podcast as a video, but you're looking for that clean audio, you need separate tracks. So Cleanfeed's the type of program that now you can record each person's audio separately, and then you can kind of manage that, because we learn about things like, now that we're in the podcasting world, right? You get hot mics, you need to lower people's levels. So this is going to let you do that. Now, I will say the free version doesn't give you that capability, and you got to go to the paid version to be able to do that multi-tracking. But if you're looking for a way to record some audio and have some good files, this is definitely something worth checking out.
And it's also, in addition to that, so it adds multi-track recording if you get the Cleanfeed paid version, which is $22 a month, but it gives you multi-track recording. It gives you multiple sources. So this way, if you have extra USB mics or a mixer and whatnot, you can bring those in. And the key thing is, the reason you want all these separate tracks is so that if you do, for example, when Jem and I record a podcast, it's recorded as two separate audio tracks. So then if I need to, maybe Jem has to cough in the middle of his part, I can easily remove that out of the audio so that it sounds nice and clean, and so it's definitely worth checking out. Ross, anything you want to add on Cleanfeed?
I've never used Cleanfeed. I've heard good things about it. I know a lot of people use, I think it's called Squadcast. Yeah, Squadcast, which has video, but just so that you're looking at each other, not so that, you can repurpose it. Then there's Riverside. Is it River something? .fm, which apparently has video of very high quality and separate video clips or tracks and separate audio tracks. Of course, you can do some of this in Zoom as well. You can get separate audio tracks, or if you have I think on the paid, one of the paid plans, you can get separate video. But Zoom has its issues with audio. It's not always the most reliable, and a lot of these different apps add processing. So I think more and more people are going to go this way for podcasting and even for video podcasting. If for doing a live stream broadcast, I don't find most of these have the kind of, I don't know that Cleanfeed streams at all, but some of them do stream, but they just don't have the broadcasting features or getting the hours of streaming that you would need for a show like this, a weekly show. It just becomes too expensive. Now, StreamYard has talked about in the future being able to provide multiple audio tracks that you can download, and maybe even multiple video tracks. So that's something to look for that might be coming from StreamYard. Certainly your recording that you get right now from StreamYard, the audio and the video, is going to be much higher quality than what you get from Facebook, and even somewhat higher quality than what you would get from YouTube. But these apps are optimized for podcasting 100%. And so if that is your goal, to get the just absolute highest quality recording, and you're for an audio podcast, I think it's something more people are going to do, because it saves you the trouble of each person recording into their own recorder, and then you got to send it back and forth and all that. Like, it's sort of a done for you solution. You're going to get high quality, you're going to get separate tracks. I personally like to get a good left-right mix and not have to mess with a separate track. So, but there's advantages. There's advantages to doing that.
So, and I guess one last question I have for you, Ross. So, if somebody needs to get a tool that does this sort of thing, where you can get that separate audio channel, for example, do you think that, what's your take, I guess, on the fact that should somebody buy a separate tool for that, or should they try to band-aid that process and use, for example, a tool that sort of does it, but not very well? What's your take on that real quick?
It's a good question. You have the Rodecaster.
Mm-hmm.
We both have the MixPre from Sound Devices. Both of those can record separate tracks.
Right.
They record very high quality audio.
Mm-hmm.
I would go so far as to say that the MixPre 3 or MixPre 6 record pro level audio without any doubt. Okay. What they can't do is ensure that the audio that you're getting from your guest is at the same level that the audio from your mic is going in directly into that recorder, right? So your mic's plugged into the Rodecaster, it's plugged into the MixPre 3. You should be getting a really high quality recording. You can arm separate tracks on that. I like that way. I not terribly concerned if my guest's audio is slightly below my quality, as long as the audience can enjoy it. I get a separate track. I can clean it up if I need to. And I like having the hardware of the MixPre 3 to be able to take with me. And, I can put a camera on it and I can live stream and I can do a lot of different things. I can record a podcast with multiple mics on the go. I can conduct interviews with it and get really high quality sound. All things that I don't need internet. Either I don't need internet connection for, or I can just go right from the unit, sending the audio into a phone or computer and going live. It just all depends on what your priorities are. I think, how do you want to spend monthly? Do you want to buy a piece of hardware and be done with, not have to deal with monthly payments? Is having perfect audio from the host and the guest, that, like, when I worked in radio, there wasn't this emphasis on the guest had to have perfect audio. The guest was calling in on a phone. The host was in a studio using a professional mic. When you went out to cover an event, let's say you went to a press conference or something, it was about getting the sound and it being usable. And in the middle of a newscast, you'd be reading the news and then you would hit that sound bite. And nobody expected it to be the same quality as the host in the studio recording it or going live. And you knew that unless you had a guest in studio, your guest wasn't going to sound as good. And with podcasting, there's a different expectation now. We expect the audio to be at a certain level. We expect it to be produced. It's just, how fanatic do you need to get with it? And I mean, I'm keeping my MixPre 3 because I want the sound going from my mic into the computer or going out to the world or being recorded to be the best that I can get. And I know that even if I were to subscribe to one of these, I still need a preamp for my mic. So I still need good hardware regardless. And at this point, I prefer using StreamYard and I prefer doing live shows. And I think the recording that I get either in the MixPre 3 or that I download from StreamYard is more than good enough for what I do for repurposing.
Got it. So I want to thank everybody for watching. We're going to wrap things up real quick, but Ross, what's the best place for people to get in touch with you?
So Twitter, you got my Twitter up there, is great. Twitter.com/iRossBrand. If you're interested in learning more about live streaming, if you have questions, there's no better deal than $5 Fridays. It's $5. You come in, you can ask as many questions as time allows and get my insights. If it's a small audience, it basically becomes almost an hour of free consulting plus that tiny $5 comment. You can sign up at livestreamuniverse.com/Friday, livestreamuniverse.com/Friday. And if you sign up from watching this show, if I see you sign up today, you get the first one for free. So
very nice. So that's going to do it for this week's show. Just a couple of quick notes here. If you want to get the blog post recap, we'll publish that over the weekend. Socialchefs.com/SC255. And in addition to that, there's also, as Ross mentioned, there's the Alexa flash briefing and the podcast version as well. So if you want to tune into all of that, also check out some of the tools and whatnot, or the topics we mentioned. And then lastly, we're going to be joined next Thursday, Jim and I, by George DeMonis. That's going to be on the 27th, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so a slightly different time. YouTube.com/social chefs, Facebook.com/social chefs. By the way, Jim, what's the best place for people to get in touch with you if they have questions on anything?
Jim Fuhs on LinkedIn and Fusion Marketing everywhere else, and definitely on Twitter. Just you'll find me.
Fantastic. And if you have any other questions, just check out @Social Chefs on all the social channels as well. But that's going to do it for this show. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and we will see you all next Thursday. Thanks a lot. Bye.